Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so question one is which of the following statements is true about eyewitness testimony? And the options were eyewitnesses are often more correct than confident. That is not true. Saying they're often correct is almost a stretch. Eyewitnesses who pay attention to details are more likely to remember a face. That's not true. Confident eyewitnesses are less accurate. That is less accurate when making identifications soon after the event. That's not true. But what is true is that confident witnesses are not necessarily accurate witnesses. And you both got that right. That has been a big theme of this memory psych and law unit. How confident you are is not directly correlated with how good the memory is, and it really feels like it. But it is not true. Confident witnesses are not necessarily the most accurate. Notice this is a not true. Which of these is not true? Okay. So this question is which is not true in relation to jurors in the court. So let's go through them. Jurors are best persuaded when attorneys present evidence as a story. That is true. Um, Stories are persuasive. The second option, many jurors don't understand the standard legalese. That is true. Many of us don't understand standard legalese. The correct answer, well, let's go through the other one that's true. Understanding how jurors misconstrue judicial instructions is the first step towards better decisions. That's true. What's not true, premature opinions formed by jurors won't interpret how they influence information later. That is not true. Premature opinions do influence how you think about things later. So that was kind of a not true, but at the end of the day, your premature opinions, they affect how you think throughout the whole process. Okay, so you both got this right. So the question is, among entering collegians, the proportion considering it very important or essential that they become very well off financially did what between 1970 and 2016? So this was determined by a study that used longitudinal data, and it's really cool because the data spans such a large amount of time. But the answer is rose dramatically. So as compared to 50 years ago, now, there has been a dramatic rise in how important college students think it is that they're very well off financially in the future. And it could be part of changing economics because 50 years ago, it would have been easier to have like a single income family or to ever own a house. But at the same time, there's like socio-cultural factors. But the end of the day, there's been a dramatic rise in how important college students think it is to be very well off financially in the future. Okay. So this question is, which of the following statements is true about eyewitness testimony? And the answer is most convicted people later exonerated by DNA evidence were eyewitnesses, mistaken eyewitnesses. So this isn't to say that people lied and then the person was exonerated by DNA. Most of the convicted people who are later exonerated by DNA were victims of mistaken eyewitnesses. So it's important to keep in mind that no matter how vivid a memory may seem, that doesn't mean it's accurate. It really doesn't. And it's kind of a way that our mind plays tricks on us. But most convicted people later exonerated by DNA were the victim of a mistaken eyewitness. Other options that weren't true. It's not true that jurors find confident witnesses the least believable. It's not true that eyewitnesses who remember trivial details are more accurate than those who do not. And that's what both of you guys thought. So that's not true. It's like memory, it is so weird, but remembering trivial details, it doesn't mean you remembered important details. Feeling like you really remember it, it doesn't mean you're actually accurate. It is so weird. But we do know that because it's so weird, we do have some problems with eyewitnesses. And we have talked a lot in the ICA, and we'll talk in our papers about like to what extent should eyewitnesses be used in the legal system. You know, they obviously have a lot of value, but they obviously have a lot of flaws. But this question just kind of speaks to that. But at the end of the day, we can kind of see that malleability of memory and the kind of games our memory can play on us. Okay, so the question is to minimize the effects of an inadmissible testimony, judges are best advised to. And the correct answer is videotape the testimony and cut out the inadmissible part. Oh, hi, Gracie. I don't know if you can still get in the game or not. But let me put the code in the chat just in case you can. Um, let's see. So see if you can get in there, and if not, you can just watch. So basically, if to minimize an inadmissible part of the testimony, the best thing you can do is videotape that testimony in advance and cut out the parts that are inadmissible. What you want to do is if there's something that's inadmissible that you don't want people to consider, the very best thing that you can do is just never have them hear it, because once that is out of the bag and you tell them to disregard it, they can't. They may really try to, they may say that they're disregarding it, but they really can't completely disregard something inadmissible. You can't just show and be like, oh, sorry, like, well, just disregard that part. Videotaping it is a great way where you can cut out something inadmissible. But if it does come up and people do see something inadmissible, you can try to tell them to ignore it. But they can try their best, but once it's kind of out there, it's out there. And that's why videotaping stuff can be really helpful. Not always possible, but helpful. Oh, so you can join late. That's good to know. I'm always waiting to start every session because I thought nobody could join late. I'm glad I learned. Okay. So the question is, Donna has been short of money and worried about her job security. Yesterday, she was surprised to find out she was being promoted and given a 10% raise. The adaptation level phenomenon suggests that she will soon be worried about money again. She won't have better self-esteem. She won't work harder, probably. What will happen is she gets, like sometimes I was talking to the class earlier about this. You can feel like if I had like $150 more a month, my life would be different. It would just be such a relief, like with whatever dollar amount that you think. I think when I was in college, I think I really felt that if I had $50 more a month, my life would be a lot better. And, that would have been like 15 years ago, but even now people can relate. But what's true is you adapt to it very, very quickly. I have not personally gotten an exactly 10% raise before, but I have gotten a 5% raise, and it felt really good the first paycheck. And then you start being worried again. You adapt. It's called the hedonic treadmill, but basically, if you get a small raise or something like small gets better, even moderate gets better, you just adapt. Like if it's financial, you accidentally start spending just a little bit more and start feeling exactly the same. All types of different topics can go on this as well, but it's called the hedonic treadmill. It's called the adaptation level phenomenon, and it means if you get a raise, very soon you're just as worried as you were before. Um, it can go with your mood, it can go with all kinds of things, but finances are what we talk about with it the most. Okay, so the question was when witnesses filter information during acquisition and recall, what are they doing? The answer is a schema-driven error. So our schemas are the prototypes of how we see the world around us. They're our mental image of how we think things are in our prototype in our mind. And so part of memory is you're filtering things that you don't have based on your schema of what you think they would be, and you don't even know it. And so when you filter information during acquisition and recall, that would mean that kind of filtering that you're doing is a schema-driven error. Okay. So the question is, research on minority influence suggests that jurors in the minority will be most persuasive, and the answer is when they begin to trigger some defections from the majority. Other answers are inclined to changing their position. That's not true. You're not really that persuasive if you're inclined to change your own position. Um, and it's not true that if you're favorable to the opinions and decisions of the majority, if you're kind of like, well, I see y'all side so much, but I think this is not as persuasive. All you want to begin to trigger some defections from the majority. You just need, let's say you're on a jury everybody agrees but you. If you can get one person on your side, you're going to start to trigger other people. You need to be like firm. You don't need to be aggressive, but you don't have to be over the top. Well, I see your side, and I mean, you could say it politely, but you have to be firm and just get one person to defect, and then you will be able to start to be persuasive. And this is not just true on juries, this is true in real life. I think it's very useful. Always be firm, be strong, be respectful, but if you can get one person on your side, that's when things may start to shift. Okay, the question is research indicates that six-member juries are A, less likely to pass strong judgments, B, able to recall trial testimony more accurately, C, less likely to include a community's diversity, and D, more likely to have hung verdicts. So this is actually C. It can seem like a cool idea, like, oh, everybody has to be on jury duty. Not me. They don't want psychologists on jury duty, and I'd really love to help. Um, but like, what if we could just have six jurors and it would be just as good? Then we would have like more capacity. But the downside of having only six people and not 12 is that you won't be reflecting the community's diversity as well because there just aren't enough people. Like, I'm not for sure if this is true, but let's say like 15% of people in the US are Hispanic. Well, if you have 12 people, you're more likely to randomly have a Hispanic person than if you have six people. And we have different genders, different races, different religions, all different types of people. If we only have six people, we're not going to see as diverse of a group as if we have 12 people. I think this question is on the test. Okay, so the question is when jurors or some judges hearing a case are like-minded people, they tend to go to extremes when making decisions as a group. This is group polarization, and two people got it, which is great because I think this is a tricky concept and there's some related concepts that sound like very similar. But yes, if you have a group of people who all think really similarly, you get them in a room and they're going to come to something even more extreme than what they would have thought of on their own. Like, maybe you get some people of a political party, either side or a third party or something like that. You get them all together and they're going to start coming up with something more extreme than what they would have had on their own. That is group polarization. Yes, groupthink and group polarization, that's an excellent question. The biggest difference here is to be really specific when you talk about going to an extreme, that's when it's talking about polarization. So yes, they are thinking together, but because they're also going to an extreme, they're getting polarized. Hopefully that answers your question. It's definitely something I think a lot of people don't realize regarding like when groups are in thinking in the same way, they are very likely to start to go maybe too far in some type of direction. Thanks for asking the clarification. Perfect. Okay, so everybody got this right. The question is which of these is a way to reduce consumption? Increase income tax? No. Regulate rates? No, that seems very weird. Creating a one world economy. I don't really know what that is. But providing incentives for conservation, everybody got this right. This is true. I would be a lot more likely to do a better job at conserving if I got paid for it. Um, so anything that you can, you think about like the HOV lane, driving in an HOV lane, that's awesome because you can drive faster because somebody's in your car. There's some incentives now, but yeah, if you can incentivize people for conservation, you're going to see a lot more people adopt those behaviors. Okay, great. So this last question is, which of the following is most likely to help enable sustainable living on a global scale? And the answer is controlling material consumption. Somebody put reducing the use of technology. That would make sense if it was more reducing like how many devices you use or something, but there's really nothing wrong with people using it a lot as long as it's not like on tons of devices or updating new devices or all types of things. You got a new iPhone every year. I have an iPhone 8. So I'm winning on the sustainability on that one. But controlling material consumption overall, that's what's most likely to help with sustainable living on a global scale. I like that the book that I adapt this class for does have a chapter on environmental psychology. I think is something that we don't get to talk about a lot. Um, but that is really all I have for the review. Three or four of these questions are on the real test, so make sure that you know the content that was in this video. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and then see if people have any other questions.